The message came in the dead of night. In the quiet halls of the Galactic Council's communication center, a young technician named Trell nearly fell from his chair when the emergency frequency lit up his console. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he verified the signal origin 3 times before believing it. "Sir, emergency transmission from the Lumion homeworld," Trell called out, his voice cracking. Senior Communications Officer Vard shuffled over, annoyed, at the disruption of his peaceful night shift. The Lumions were a peaceful race, known for their advanced technology and gentle nature. They rarely contacted the Council except for scheduled reports. "Put it through," Vard ordered, straightening his uniform. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a Lumion with pale blue skin and large, frightened eyes. Smoke filled the background, and distant explosions punctuated the transmission. The Lumion's delicate features were twisted with fear. "This is High Minister Pell of the Lumion Cooperative. We are under attack by the Vex Armada. Our outer colonies have fallen. Our defense systems cannot hold. We request immediate assistance from the Galactic Council. We have less than 30 days before our homeworld falls." Vard felt his blood run cold. The Vex were a ruthless species that consumed everything in their path. Their war fleets had destroyed dozens of civilizations on the Outer Rim. "Minister Pell, this is the Galactic Council receiving. How many Vex ships have entered your system?" "Over 200 warships. They destroyed our orbital defenses in hours. Please, we cannot fight them. We need help." The transmission ended abruptly with the sound of an explosion. Vard immediately alerted the Council, knowing full well what their response would be. No single species in the Council had the military strength to challenge the Vex. A coalition force would take months to organize, months the Lumions didn't have. 12 hours later, the full Galactic Council assembled in their grand chamber. Representatives from 50 advanced species debated what to do about the Lumion crisis. "We cannot assemble a defense force quickly enough," stated the Tellarian ambassador, her crystalline form glittering under the chamber lights. "Perhaps we can negotiate," began another. "The Vex do not negotiate," interrupted Ambassador Morva, an ancient being whose species had barely survived a Vex encounter centuries ago. "They consume and move on. The Lumions are already lost." In the far back of the chamber, in the observer section reserved for non-voting members, sat Admiral Marcus Jones of Earth's United Defense Force. Humans had only achieved faster than light travel 60 years ago. They were still considered primitives by most of the galactic community, Deathworlders, who evolved on a high-gravity planet full of predators and natural disasters. The Council had allowed humans observer status only, concerned about their history of warfare and their biological adaptations for survival in harsh conditions. To most galactic species, humans were unpredictable and potentially dangerous. As Marcus listened to the Council debate, he felt a growing anger. The Lumions would die while these diplomats talked. When the Council adjourned without reaching a decision, Admiral Jones made his way to a secure communication room in the Earth Embassy. He connected directly to the United Earth government on a quantum encrypted channel. President Laura Wilson appeared on screen, her gray hair pulled back tightly, her eyes sharp despite the late hour in the North American Union. "Admiral, your report?" "Madam President, the Lumions have sent out an SOS. The Vex Armada is tearing through their system. The Council is doing what they always do, talking while people die." President Wilson nodded grimly. "Our intelligence already picked up the distress call. What's your assessment?" "The Vex have around 200 warships. They've destroyed the Lumion outer colonies and will reach their homeworld within a month. The Lumions are technologically advanced but have no significant military. They're pacifists." And the Council's response? "There won't be one in time. They're afraid, and with good reason. The Vex don't leave survivors." The President was silent for a moment. How many ships would we need to make a difference? Admiral Jones felt his heart beat faster. "Everything we've got, and even then, it would be a near-suicide mission. I'm calling an emergency session of Earth's Defense Council. Be ready to brief us in 4 hours." The meeting room in Earth's Geneva headquarters was filled to capacity. Military leaders from every continent sat alongside colonial representatives from Mars, Europa, and Titan. Admiral Jones stood at the front, having just finished briefing them on the Lumian situation. "Let me be clear," he said, looking at each face in turn. "If we do this, we will be acting against Council recommendations. Many of our ships and crews won't come back. But if we don't, an entire civilization dies." General Rita Hayes from the African Coalition leaned forward. "The Council has denied our full membership for decades because they say we're too violent, too unpredictable. Now they sit on their hands while billions of Lumians face extinction." "The Vex have never faced humans before," added Colonel Wei from the Asian Alliance. "They've fought peaceful species who surrender quickly. They haven't fought Deathworlders who evolved hunting predators twice their size." President Wilson called for a vote. The decision was unanimous. Earth would send its fleet. 2 days later, Admiral Jones stood on the bridge of the UDF Resolute, Earth's largest battleship. Through the viewscreen, he watched as ships from every human nation and colony moved into formation. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, and frigates, 300 vessels in all, crewed by volunteers who knew they might never return home. Captain Sam Turner approached, offering a data tablet. "Admiral, all ships report ready for jump." Jones looked at the fleet manifest. The ships had been pulled from every corner of human space. Some were brand new. Others recommissioned veterans of past conflicts between Earth nations. It was the largest military force humans had ever assembled. "Captain, open a channel to the fleet." When the connection was confirmed, Admiral Jones spoke, clearly his voice reaching every ship. "Men and women of Earth's fleet, we are about to embark on the most important mission in human history, not to fight for ourselves, but to save a species that cannot save themselves. The galactic community calls us Deathworlders like it's something to be ashamed of. But today, we show them what that really means. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages and predators and disease. We endured natural disasters and our own wars. Everything that made us strong, our tenacity, our refusal to surrender, our ability to fight on when logic says we should fall, all of it was forged in the crucible of Earth. The Lumians have 3 weeks before their world falls. We'll be there in 5 days. The Vex think they're hunting easy prey. They're about to learn what it means to face the children of Earth." A cheer rose through the ship, echoed across the fleet. "All ships prepare for jump. We're going hunting." The space before the fleet shimmered as jump drives engaged. One by one, 300 ships disappeared into the void, carrying humanity's sole answer to an alien cry for help. Behind them, Earth turned peacefully, unaware that its children were about to show the galaxy why Deathworlders were the most dangerous species of all, not because they sought violence, but because when protecting others they would never, ever quit. 5 days after leaving Earth, Admiral Jones stood on the command deck of the UDF Resolute, watching as his fleet regrouped at the edge of Lumian space. The jump had been successful, with only minor navigation issues affecting 3 ships. "Status. Report," he ordered. Captain Lisa Reed, commander of the UDF Relentless, appeared on the main screen. Her face was stern, framed by short gray hair that matched her sharp eyes. "All ships accounted for, Admiral. Battle groups are forming as planned. Weapons and shields at full capacity." Jones nodded. "And the scout ships?" "They've entered the system 10 minutes ago. We should have their first report soon." The waiting was the hardest part. Jones had sent 3 small, fast ships ahead to gather information on the Vex positions. Fighting blind would only get more humans killed. The communication officer turned from his station. "Admiral, incoming transmission from Scout 2. Put it through." The face of Lieutenant Dan Taylor appeared, looking grim. "Sir, we've completed our first sweep of the outer system. It's bad. The Vex have destroyed all 4 outer colonies. Billions dead. Their fleet is moving toward the Lumian homeworld in a standard sweep pattern. We count at least 200 warships, maybe more." Jones felt his stomach tighten. He had known the odds, but hearing it confirmed made it real. "Any sign they've detected you?" "Negative, sir. We're staying beyond their sensor range." "Good. Continue observation. I want detailed scans of their fleet composition." As the transmission Ended, Jones turned to his tactical officer. How long until they reach the Lumian homeworld? At their current speed, 14 days, sir. Not much time. Jones opened a channel to all ship commanders. Battle group leaders report to the Resolute for strategy briefing in 1 hour. We move into the system at 600 tomorrow. The briefing room was crowded with 30 ship commanders representing each battle group. Maps of the Lumian system glowed, in the center of the table, showing Vex fleet positions marked in red. Captain Reed spoke first. Our scouts report the Vex fleet is spread thin as they search for survivors. They haven't faced real resistance, so they're not in defensive formation. Admiral Jones nodded. That gives us an advantage. We'll split into 10 battle groups and hit them from multiple vectors. Captain Reed, your group will lead the main assault here. He pointed to the largest cluster of Vex ships. Commander Ford, your fast attack group will target their support vessels. Captain Miller, your group will break through to the Lumian homeworld and establish defensive positions. Commander Ben Ford, a young officer known for his aggressive tactics, looked concerned. Sir, we still know very little about Vex weapons capabilities. Our intelligence is limited, which is why we need better intelligence, Jones replied. We've arranged a meeting with someone who can help us. As if on cue, the door slid open. A tall, slender figure entered, skin pale blue and eyes large and luminous. It was a Lumian, older by the looks of it, wearing formal robes marked with burn holes. This is Ambassador Pell, Jones introduced, the same one who sent the distress call. His ship escaped the initial attack. Pell bowed slightly. I thank you for coming. My people thought no one would answer our call. The Galactic Council wouldn't help? Asked Captain Miller. They would have debated until we were all dead, Pell said simply. When I learned humans were coming, I broke protocol to meet you. The Council fears your species. I fear extinction more. Jones gestured to the map. Ambassador, we need to know everything about the Vex, their weapons, tactics, weaknesses. Pell stepped forward and waved his long fingers over the display. The image changed to show detailed schematics of Vex warships. The Vex rely on energy, weapons, powerful but slow to recharge. Their ships have strong frontal shields but weaker protection on the sides and rear. They fight in perfect formation and never retreat, no matter the losses. Captain Reed studied the images. Predictable. They've never needed to adapt. Exactly, Pell nodded. They've conquered 17 species and none could stand against them. They expect the same from you. Then we'll give them a surprise, Jones said grimly. We're going to hit them hard, hit them fast, and hit them where they don't expect it. While the commanders planned their attack, ordinary crew members throughout the fleet prepared for battle. On the UDF Dauntless, engineer Anna Grant checked weapon systems with her team. The missile tubes had been modified based on Pell's information about Vex shield frequencies. Their shields are calibrated against energy weapons, she explained to her junior engineers. But our kinetic weapons should punch right through if we time it right. In the medical bay of the UDF Horizon, Dr. Tom Wright organized his supplies. Set up extra trauma stations, he ordered his staff, and double-check the synthetic blood supplies. We're going to need them. Across the fleet, 300 ships hummed with activity. Marines cleaned their weapons. Pilots ran simulations. Communication officers synchronized encrypted channels. That evening, Admiral Jones found Ambassador Pell alone in the observation deck staring at the distant stars. Ambassador, you should rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Pell turned, his large eyes reflecting the starlight. I never imagined your kind would come. The Council speaks of humans as dangerous, violent creatures from a death planet. Jones joined him at the window. Earth shaped us. High gravity made our bones dense, our muscles strong. Predators made us vigilant. Natural disasters taught us to adapt. But it also taught us to protect those who cannot protect themselves. My people have never known war, Pell said quietly. We evolved on a gentle world with few threats. We developed technology instead of strength. The Vex see this as weakness. It's not weakness to choose peace, Jones replied. But sometimes you need people who understand war to defend that choice. Pell was silent for a moment. How many of your people will die to save mine? Jones didn't sugarcoat it. Many, perhaps too many. But every person on these ships volunteered knowing the odds. Why? Because that's who we are. We may be Deathworlders, but we use our strength to defend life, not take it. At 600 ship time, the human fleet moved into Lumian space. From the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Jones watched as the ships divided into their battle groups, each heading for their assigned targets. Captain Reed's voice came through the comm. All ships report ready, Admiral. Weapons hot, shields at maximum. Jones took a deep breath. The moment had come. 300 human ships against 200 Vex warships that had never known defeat. On paper, it looked almost even, but the Vex had conquered 17 species without a single loss. They were about to face their first defeat. All ships, this is Admiral Jones. The Vex think they're unstoppable because they've never faced humans before. They've never fought Deathworlders who evolved fighting every day just to survive. Today we show them what Earth taught us. He paused, looking at the tactical display where red dots showed the unsuspecting Vex ships. Battle Group 1, commence. Attack. All groups, execute your missions. For Earth and the Lumians. Across the void, engines flared as human ships accelerated toward the enemy. The fleet of the Deathworlders had arrived, bringing with them everything that made humanity both terrible and great. Their tenacity, their courage, and their unwavering determination to protect those who could not protect themselves. The battle for Lumian space had begun. Captain Lisa Reed of the UDF Relentless watched her tactical display as her battle group approached the largest cluster of Vex ships. 10 human warships against 23 Vex vessels. Not great odds, but the element of surprise was on their side. All ships, maintain radio silence. Weapons hot. Execute attack pattern Delta on my mark, she ordered quietly. The Vex had no idea they were coming. Their ships moved in a perfect, orderly formation as they bombarded a small Lumian mining outpost. Their precision was impressive but predictable. 3 minutes to optimal firing range, her tactical officer reported. Reed nodded. Prepare missile salvos. Target their rear shield quadrants. Ambassador Pell had explained that Vex ships had their weakest shields at the rear, confident that no enemy would ever get behind them. Today, that confidence would cost them. Mark, Reed commanded. 10 human warships suddenly broke from their stealth approach. Engines flared as they executed a complex maneuver, splitting into pairs that curved around to attack the Vex formation from 5 different angles. The Relentless shuddered as it launched its first missile salvo. 40 high-yield warheads streaked across space, followed by hundreds more from the other ships in the battle group. On the Vex command ship, alarms blared as sensors detected the incoming attack. For crucial seconds, the Vex commanders hesitated, unable to understand how enemy ships had approached undetected. That hesitation proved fatal. The missiles struck their targets, overwhelming the weaker rear shields. 5 Vex ships erupted into balls of flame before they could even return fire. Direct hits, shouted the weapons officer. 5 enemy ships destroyed, 3 heavily damaged. Reed allowed herself a small smile. Good. Begin evasive pattern. Keep moving. Don't give them a stable target. The Vex responded with energy beams that cut through space, but the human ships were already changing position, dancing in unpredictable patterns that the Vex targeting system struggled to track. Across the Lumian system, similar scenes played out as human battle groups engaged Vex formations. The Deathworlders fought with a ferocity and unpredictability that confused the Vex, who were accustomed to enemies that followed logical, predictable patterns. On the UDF Dauntless, Captain Robert Miller watched as his ship took a direct hit from a Vex energy weapon. The ship rocked violently, throwing crew members to the floor. "Damage report!" he shouted over the blaring alarms. His first officer's face was streaked with blood from a cut on his forehead. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 5. Sealing emergency. Bulkheads, casualties reported in engineering, starboard weapons offline." A normal species might have retreated after such damage. The Vex clearly expected it, already turning their attention to another target. Miller wiped dust from his eyes. Redirect power from non-essential systems to the port weapons array. Bring us about. We're not done yet. In engineering, Chief Engineer Anna Grant worked frantically to keep the ship's systems online. A support beam had collapsed, crushing 2 of her team members. Her arm was burned from a plasma leak, but she ignored the pain. Reroute power through the auxiliary conduits, she ordered the remaining engineers. We need those weapons back. When a junior engineer hesitated, looking at the bodies of their fallen comrades, Grant grabbed his shoulder. Later we'll mourn. Right now we fight. Every second those weapons are offline, more of us die. The engineer nodded and returned to work. On the Vex command ship, Fleet Commander Kralvor watched in confusion as the battle unfolded. His forces were taking unprecedented losses. These creatures fight without logic, he hissed to his sub-commander. Their ships are damaged beyond repair, yet they continue to attack. On his view screen, he watched a human destroyer, venting atmosphere and trailing debris, ram itself directly into a Vex cruiser. Both ships exploded in a brilliant flash. Open a communication channel to their lead vessel, Kralvor ordered. I wish to understand these Deathworlders before we exterminate them. On the bridge of the UDF Dauntless, Captain Miller was strapped back into his command chair. Half the bridge stations were destroyed, and emergency force fields contained hull breaches on 3 sides. The air was thin as life support struggled to maintain pressure. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Vex command ship, reported his communications officer, her face pale from oxygen deprivation. Put it through, Miller ordered, wiping blood from a gash on his cheek. The screen flickered to life, showing a Vex commander. The alien had a reptilian appearance with scales that shifted color like oil on water. Its 4 yellow eyes widened slightly at the sight of the damaged bridge. Human commander. The Vex spoke in a hissing voice translated by the ship's computer. Your vessel is critically damaged. Your weapons are operating at 30% capacity. Surrender now, and we will make your extinction painless. Miller laughed, a sound that clearly confused the Vex commander. Look closer, Miller said, gesturing to his wounded crew, each still at their posts despite injuries. Do we look like we're about to surrender? The Vex commander seemed genuinely puzzled. Your ship is dying. Logic dictates you should retreat to preserve your lives. That's the difference between us, Miller replied, blood dripping from his chin. You fight until it's logical to stop. We fight until the job is done. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Target their command ship, all remaining missiles. Sir, at this range the blast will damage us too. I know. Fire. From the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Jones watched the tactical display as the battle raged across the system. Human ships fought with everything they had, refusing to retreat, even when logic said they should. The Vex, accustomed to enemies that broke after sustaining minimal damage, were clearly confused by the human tactics. For the first time, several Vex ships broke formation, retreating from battle. Sir, his communications officer called out. Captain Reed reports her battle group has destroyed 14 Vex ships with 6 more retreating. They've secured the sector. Jones nodded. And Captain Miller's group? A pause. The Dauntless reports a direct hit on the Vex command ship. Both vessels are heavily damaged, but the Vex ship is retreating. 3 other human ships in that group are gone, sir. Jones closed his eyes briefly. The cost was already high, but they had achieved what no other species had. They had made the Vex retreat. Ambassador Pell stood silently nearby, watching the battle with wide, disbelieving eyes. They're retreating, he whispered. In 17 conquests, the Vex have never retreated. They've never faced humans before, Jones replied grimly. We'll make them retreat all the way out of your system. He opened a channel to the fleet. All ships. This is Admiral Jones. The Vex are falling back in multiple sectors. Press the advantage. We have them on the run. Throughout the system, damaged human ships continued their relentless assault. Blood-spattered crews worked through pain and grief, pushing their ships beyond design limits. For every human ship lost, they claimed 2 Vex vessels, and for the first time in their long history of conquest, the Vex Armada tasted fear. The fear of an enemy that simply would not quit, no matter the cost. 3 weeks into the campaign, the human fleet had pushed the Vex back from the Lumian homeworld. The cost had been enormous, over 60 human ships destroyed and dozens more severely damaged. But the Vex had lost nearly half their fleet, an unprecedented defeat for the previously unstoppable armada. On the medical ship UDF Mercy, Dr. Emily Wright hadn't slept in 36 hours. The medical bay was filled beyond capacity with wounded from damaged ships across the fleet. Burn victims, radiation exposure, traumatic amputations, injuries that would make most species give up the fight. A Lumian medical observer named Trell watched in amazement as Dr. Wright moved from patient to patient. He had volunteered to help. When the Mercy established a field hospital on the Lumian moon base. "Doctor, I don't understand," Trell said, helping her dress a severe plasma burn on a Marine's leg. "This man has third-degree burns over 30% of his body. In our medical protocols, he would be sedated and removed from duty for months." Wright barely looked up as she worked. "On Earth, we've been treating war wounds since before we had written language. He'll be back on duty in 24 hours. The Marine, despite his pain, nodded firmly. "My squad needs me, Doc. Just patch me up enough to hold a rifle." Trell's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in disbelief. "But why continue, fighting when so badly injured?" The Marine gave a pained smile. "Because the job isn't done." On the UDF Relentless, Captain Lisa Reed studied the latest intelligence reports with her officers. Despite their successes, the remaining Vex ships had regrouped into a tight defensive formation around their flagship, a massive vessel twice the size of the largest human warship. "They're learning to adapt to our tactics," Reed said grimly. "The element of surprise is gone." Intelligence Officer Dave Cooper pointed to the holographic display of the Vex formation. "Their command structure remains highly centralized. All tactical decisions flow from the flagship. If we could take it out, the rest of their fleet would be in disarray." "Easier said than done," Reed replied. "They've surrounded it with their remaining ships in a layered defense. We don't have enough firepower left to break through." Cooper hesitated. "There might be another way. We captured a damaged Vex shuttle during the last engagement. It's small but functional." Reed raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting infiltration?" "Yes, ma'am. A small team could approach using the Vex shuttle. Their automated systems should recognize it as friendly. Once aboard the flagship, they could sabotage key systems, maybe even their command network." Reed was silent for a moment. "It would be a one-way trip. Even if they succeeded, getting off that ship alive would be nearly impossible." "I know," Cooper said quietly. "But if it works, we save thousands of our people and billions of Lumians." Admiral Jones approved the plan with a heavy heart. "Who will lead the mission?" he asked Captain Reed over the secure channel. "Lieutenant, Mike Foster has volunteered," she replied. "He's put together a team of 6 Special Forces operators." Jones recognized the name. Foster had grown up in the harsh Australian outback, one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. If anyone could survive this mission, it would be him. "Very well, tell them Earth is proud." In the hangar bay of the Relentless, Lieutenant Foster briefed his team as they prepared their equipment. All 6 were veterans of Earth's most elite military units, trained to operate in the harshest conditions imaginable. "Once we're aboard," Foster explained, "we split into 3 teams. Team 1 targets their central computer core. Team 2 handles the power distribution network. Team 3, that's you and me, Jackson, we go after the command center. Sergeant." Maria Jackson nodded grimly. A former Arctic survival instructor, she had once survived 2 weeks alone in a blizzard after her shelter collapsed. "What's our extraction plan?" Foster met her eyes. "There isn't one. But if we succeed, the rest of our fleet survives." No one spoke for a moment. Then Jackson checked her weapon. "Well, if we're not coming back, let's make it count." Foster looked at each member of his team. None showed fear, only determination. "Remember your training. Remember Earth. Let's show these Vex what Deathworlders can do." Ambassador Pell watched from the bridge of the Resolute as the captured Vex shuttle launched. It was barely visible against the darkness of space, a tiny vessel heading toward the massive Vex flagship. Will they succeed? He asked Admiral Jones, softly. If any beings in this galaxy can, it's them, Jones replied. Each one of them comes from one of the harshest regions of Earth, places where survival itself is a daily battle, and yet they volunteer for a mission with no return. Jones nodded. That's humanity at its best. We can be violent, yes. We evolved as predators on a world that tried to kill us every day. But we use that strength to protect, not just to destroy. The captured Vex shuttle approached the massive flagship, broadcasting identification codes taken from the shuttle's damaged computer. Lieutenant Foster sat in the pilot's seat, his breathing calm and measured despite the tension. They're scanning us, reported Corporal Lee, monitoring the communications system. For a terrifying moment, they thought they'd been discovered. Then a transmission came through, a series of codes they couldn't understand, but the shuttle's computer responded automatically. They're giving us landing clearance, Lee said with surprise. They think we're one of theirs returning from a damaged ship. Foster allowed himself a small smile. Perfect. Everyone remember. Move with purpose, but don't run. Act like you belong. Until we reach our targets. The shuttle slipped into a massive hangar bay filled with Vex vessels and repair equipment. As the team prepared to disembark, Foster looked at each of his people one last time. Whatever happens, it's been an honor. On the UDF Resolute, Admiral Jones watched the tactical display. The human fleet was positioned just beyond the Vex sensor range, waiting. Everything depended on Foster's team now. Sir, his communications? Officer called out. We're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. Jones frowned. Now? Put it through. The holographic display showed a council representative, a tall, crystalline being that glittered in the light. Admiral Jones, the council has been monitoring the situation in the Lumion system. We are surprised by your success against the Vex. We're a bit busy at the moment, Jones replied curtly. What does the council want? To observe. We have dispatched a diplomatic vessel to your location. The council wishes to understand how your species has achieved what no other could. Jones almost laughed. After refusing to help, now they wanted to watch. Your observer is welcome, but they'd better stay clear of the combat zone. We're about to hit the Vex with everything we have left. 4 hours after the shuttle landed, the Vex flagship suddenly went dark. Its lights flickered and died as power systems failed across the massive vessel. Communication ceased between the flagship and the rest of the fleet. On the Resolute's bridge, a cheer went up as they watched the Vex formation begin to drift apart, ships moving in confused patterns without central coordination. Foster did it, Jones said quietly, then louder. All ships, this is Admiral Jones. The Vex command network is down. Execute final attack plan. Hit them with everything we've got. Throughout the system, human ships surged forward, weapons blazing. Without their centralized command structure, the Vex ships fought individually, their perfect coordination shattered. As the battle raged, a small explosion tore through the hull of the Vex flagship. A single escape pod jettisoned away from the dying vessel, tumbling through space. Inside, Lieutenant Foster sat alone, blood pooling beneath him from a wound in his side. The rest of his team had stayed behind to ensure the mission's success. He stared out the small viewport as the massive Vex flagship began to break apart. We did it, he whispered to his fallen comrades. Earth's fleet will survive. The Lumions will live. As consciousness faded, his last thought was of the harsh Australian desert where he'd grown up. Earth had taught him how to survive against impossible odds. Today, he'd use that lesson to save billions. The battle for Lumion space ended 3 days after Lieutenant Foster's mission. Without their command structure, the remaining Vex ships fell into disarray. Some fought to the end while others fled, abandoning their conquest for the first time. In their long history, the cost had been enormous. Of the 300 human ships that had answered the Lumion distress call, only 180 remained. 40,000 humans had died to save billions of Lumions. Admiral Jones stood on the observation deck of the UDF Resolute, watching as rescue ships moved between damaged vessels. The Lumian homeworld glowed blue and peaceful below, saved from destruction. Captain Lisa Reed joined him, her uniform torn and her face bearing a new scar from a bridge explosion during the final battle. "We found Foster's escape pod," she reported. "He's alive, barely. Dr. Wright thinks he'll make it." Jones nodded, relief visible on his tired face. "And the rest of his team?" "They stayed behind to complete the mission. They knew what they were doing." They stood in silence for a moment, honoring the sacrifice. "The Lumian government has invited us to a ceremony," Reed said finally. "They want to thank Earth personally." Jones looked out at the stars. "Make sure every ship that can still fly is represented. Every person who survived deserves to see what they saved." On the surface of the Lumian homeworld, medical teams from both species worked side by side. Human doctors taught Lumian healers techniques developed over centuries of warfare and disaster. Treatments for trauma, burn care, battlefield medicine, knowledge. Born from humanity's violent history now used to save lives. Dr. Emily Wright supervised a joint medical center where the most severely wounded were treated. A Lumian doctor named Mira worked beside her, learning quickly. "Your methods are aggressive," Mira commented as they finished a difficult surgery on a burned engineer. "But effective. You've saved many we would have lost." Wright smiled tiredly. "Earth taught us to be survivors. When your planet tries to kill you with everything from microbes to megafauna, you get good at staying alive. The Council called you violent because of this," Mira said, gesturing to their military equipment. "They feared what you might do with your strength." "Strength isn't good or bad by itself," Wright replied. "It's how you use it that matters." In the capital city of the Lumian homeworld, a grand ceremony was prepared. The central plaza had been transformed, with crystalline structures that captured and refracted sunlight in beautiful patterns. Ambassador Pell, now appointed as High Minister of the Lumian government, stood before a gathering of both species. Human officers in formal uniform sat alongside Lumian officials. Many humans were bandaged or in hover chairs, their wounds still healing. "People of Earth," Pell began, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "1 month ago, my people faced extinction. The Galactic Council debated while we died. No species dared stand against the Vex Armada." He gestured to the humans before him. "Then came the Deathworlders. The Council named you this as if it were something to fear. But today we know it for what it truly is, a badge of honor. You came from a world that tried to kill you every day. You evolved alongside predators and disasters. You survived ice, ages, and plagues. And you used that strength not to conquer but to protect." Pell raised his hands and the crystalline structures around the plaza began to glow. They shifted, forming a memorial that captured starlight in intricate patterns. At the center, a holographic display showed the names of every human who had died in the battle. "This memorial will stand for 10,000 years, Pell declared, "so that no Lumian ever forgets what Earth did for us. Each name you see represents a person who gave their life for a species they had never met." Admiral Jones stood, ignoring the pain from his own injuries, and approached the podium when Pell gestured to him. "High Minister Pell, people of Lumia," Jones began. "We answered your call because that's what humans do. Our planet forged us in hardship, but it also taught us to stand together against threats too big for any one of us to face alone." He looked out at the crowd, at the human and Lumian faces watching him. "The Council called us Deathworlders like it was something to be ashamed of. But today, we claim that title with pride. Yes, we come from a world that tried to kill us. Yes, we evolved as predators with the instincts to fight. But we choose what to do with those instincts. We choose to defend life, not take it." A week later, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, an emergency session was called. The observer who had witnessed the final battle gave their report to the stunned representatives of 50 advanced species. The humans fought beyond all logical limits, the observer stated. Their ships continued fighting with damage that would have forced any of our vessels to retreat. Their wounded returned to duty with injuries that would incapacitate our people for months. The council chamber filled with murmurs as the observer showed recordings from the battle. Footage of Captain Miller continuing to command despite severe injuries. Engineers working in vacuum to repair critical systems. Marines fighting hand-to-hand when ammunition ran out. At the back of the chamber, Admiral Jones waited with Ambassador Pell. For this session, Earth had been granted speaker status, not yet membership, but a step forward. When called upon, Jones walked slowly to the center of the chamber. His injuries were healing, but he still moved with pain. "Esteemed Council," he began, "for decades you've kept humanity at arm's length. You called us violent, unpredictable, dangerous. You called us Deathworlders like it was an insult." He paused, looking at each council member in turn. "But it was the gravity of our world that gave us our strength. It was the predators we evolved alongside that taught us vigilance. It was the harshness of our planet that taught us to endure. And it was our long, violent history that taught us the true value of peace." The chamber was silent. "Today we don't ask for your approval. We don't need it. But know this. The next time a peaceful species faces extinction, Earth will answer their call. That's what Deathworlders do." The council voted unanimously to grant humanity full membership, something no species had achieved in less than a century of contact. As the formal ceremony concluded, the elderly Lumian High Minister Pell approached Captain Reed. "You were born on a world that tried to kill you," Pell said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "And because of that, my world still lives." Reed smiled. "That's the gift Earth gave us, though we didn't always see it that way. Strength earned through struggle, courage born from facing fear." "What will humanity do now?" Pell asked. "We'll rebuild our fleet, stronger this time, and we'll be ready if anyone else needs Deathworlders to answer their call." 1 year later, a previously unknown species sent a distress call as they faced invasion. Within hours, the newly formed Galactic Defense Fleet responded, a coalition, force led by human officers but incorporating ships and crews from a dozen worlds. At its head flew the flagship Deathworld, commanded by the now Admiral Lisa Reed. Beside her stood Pell, serving as her advisor. The message they broadcast to the invading force was simple. "We are the children of Earth. We were forged in fire and raised on a world that taught us to never give up. We stand with those who cannot stand alone. You have one chance to retreat." The invaders, having heard the stories of the human defense of Lumian space, began to withdraw before the first shot was fired. "It seems our reputation precedes us," Reed commented. Pell nodded. "The galaxy has learned an important lesson. Sometimes, you need the descendants of a death world to preserve life." Across the stars, humanity's legacy was no longer feared, but welcomed. Deathworlders who used their strength not to conquer but to protect. The wide glass windows of the Galactic Council chamber showed the stars beyond. 50 different alien species sat in curved rows, talking in low voices. At the center of the room stood Davis, a blue-skinned diplomat with 4 arms. He waited for the council leader to call for quiet. "Members of the High Council," Davis said, his voice shaking a little, "I bring urgent news from the Outer Rim." The room went silent. News from the Outer Rim was rarely good. Davis touched a small device on his wrist. A hologram appeared in the air above him. It showed a small green planet. "This is Colony World 732, also called Green Haven by the settlers. 3 days ago, they sent this message." He pressed another button. A scratchy voice filled the room. The aliens could hear explosions and screams in the background. "This is Green Haven Colony calling any Galactic Council ships. We are under attack." They came from nowhere, huge ships, hundreds of them. "They're killing everyone. They call themselves the Scourge. The message cut off with a final scream. The council chamber erupted in worried voices. The council leader, an old alien with gray skin and wise eyes, raised his hand for silence. "When did this message arrive?" he asked. "Yesterday," Davis replied. "I sent scout ships to investigate. They found this." The hologram changed to show Greenhaven again, but now the once green planet was covered in black spots. Smoke rose from the surface. Parts of the land were on fire. "The colony is gone," Davis said simply. "Over 10,000 settlers dead. And we found this." The hologram changed again. Now it showed a star map with a line of red dots moving through space. "The Scourge fleet is moving to the next system. They will reach Colony World 735 in 5 days. It has 30,000 settlers." The council leader's face looked grim. "Do we know anything about these Scourge?" "Very little," Davis admitted. "They have powerful weapons. They seem to destroy everything in their path. They don't respond to communication attempts." An alien with scales and sharp teeth stood up. "We must send the defense fleet immediately." Others nodded in agreement, but the council leader looked doubtful. "The defense fleet is spread thin across the galaxy. It would take at least 15 days to gather enough ships. By then, we could lose 3 more colonies." "Then what do we do?" someone shouted. "Just let our people die?" The chamber fell into arguing voices. Davis looked around, feeling helpless. Then, a strange idea came to him. It was crazy, but it might work. "There is one option we haven't considered," he said quietly. The room slowly went silent again. "The Deathworlders," Davis said. The reaction was immediate. Many council members gasped. Some stood up in protest. One older alien actually covered his ear holes. "Absolutely not," shouted a tall, thin alien. "We agreed to keep them isolated for good reason." The council leader raised his hand again. "Explain your thinking, Davis." Davis took a deep breath. "The humans of Earth were classified as Deathworlders for a reason. They evolved on a planet that should have killed them. High gravity, deadly radiation, extreme temperatures, natural disasters, thousands of predators. Yet they survived. They thrived. They are violent and unpredictable," someone shouted. "Yes," Davis admitted. "By our standards they are. But right now we need violent and unpredictable. The Scourge won't expect it." "The humans have a substantial fleet," the council leader said thoughtfully. "And their ships were built for war, not peace missions like ours. Their planet is close to the path of the Scourge," Davis added. "They could reach Colony World 735 in just 3 days. A gray-skinned scientist stood up. "May I remind the council that we classified Earth as a Class 12 death world? The humans can survive conditions that would kill any of us in minutes. They can break bones and heal. They can lose blood and live. They can breathe toxic gases for short periods. They can survive radiation that would kill us instantly. And they enjoy fighting," another council member added with disgust. "Their entire history is endless war." "Which makes them perfect for this situation," Davis insisted. "We need their help. The colonies need their help." The council leader looked around the room. "We must vote who supports contacting the humans of Earth." Slowly, hands and tentacles and claws raised across the chamber. Not everyone agreed, but it was enough. "Very well," the council leader said. "Davis, you will go to Earth as our representative. Explain the situation to their leaders. But be careful what you promise them. The humans have wanted to join the greater galactic community for decades. They will see this as their chance." "I understand," Davis said, bowing slightly. Later, as he prepared his ship for the journey to Earth, Davis wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. The humans were dangerous. Everyone knew that. They had been kept at arm's length for good reasons. Their planet was a nightmare that had created nightmare creatures. But as he looked at the images of Green Haven burning, Davis knew they needed the humans now. The galaxy needed the Deathworlders. His ship's engines hummed to life. The coordinates for Earth were set. "Computer, begin jump sequence to Sol system," Davis said. "Warning," the computer replied. "Destination is classified as Deathworld. Council authorization required." Davis entered his special code. Authorization accepted. Jump sequence initiated. As the stars blurred around him, Davis hoped he wasn't bringing an even worse threat into the galaxy than the Scourge. But sometimes you needed a monster to fight a monster, and humans were the best monsters the galaxy had. Davis's ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a soft shudder. Through the view screen, he saw Earth, a blue and green planet wrapped in swirling white clouds. To most galactic species, it looked beautiful, but deadly. Approaching Earth. Orbit, the ship's computer announced. Detecting human defense satellites, they are scanning this vessel. Send the Galactic Council identification codes, Davis said, straightening his diplomatic robes. His forehands trembled slightly. Incoming transmission from Earth Defense Command, the computer said. The view screen flickered, and a human face appeared. The man had dark skin, short gray hair, and a stern expression. Galactic Council vessel, this is General Banks of Earth Defense Command. State your business. Davis bowed slightly. General Banks, I am Ambassador Davis. I come with an urgent message. From the Galactic Council. I request permission to land and speak with your leaders. The general's eyes narrowed. The council hasn't sent an official representative in 15 years. Must be important. It is a matter of life and death, Davis said. For many worlds. 30 minutes later, Davis stood in a large meeting room in the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. The walls were lined with screens showing star maps and fleet positions. Around a long table sat 12 humans in military uniforms. At the head of the table was Fleet Admiral Wilson, a woman with sharp eyes and gray hair pulled back tightly. Ambassador Davis, Wilson said. You claimed this was urgent. We're listening. Davis activated his hologram device. The images of Green Haven, before and after the attack, appeared in the air. 3 days ago, the agricultural colony on Green Haven was attacked by an unknown species calling themselves the Scourge, Davis explained. Over 10,000 settlers were killed. The planet was left burning. He showed them the star map with the red dots marking the Scourge fleet's path. They will reach the next colony in 4 days. 30,000 more lives will be lost. The room was silent. Admiral Wilson leaned forward. Why come to us? The Council has its own defense fleet. Davis took a deep breath. The Council fleet is spread too thin. They cannot gather enough ships in time. He paused. But your fleet could reach the colony in just 3 days. A younger officer spoke up. You've kept us at arm's length for decades. Now you want our help? Wilson raised her hand for silence. The ambassador deserves our respect, Commander Reed. Davis looked at the young officer, then back at Wilson. Your question is fair, Commander. I understand your frustration. The hologram changed to show a scene from 28 years ago, the first official contact between humans and the Galactic Council. When we discovered Earth, we were shocked, Davis explained. Your world should not support intelligent life. The gravity is crushing by our standards. Your atmosphere contains oxygen, corrosive gas to many species. Your planet experiences extreme weather, constant natural disasters, and deadly radiation levels. The humans exchanged glances, some looking amused. You call this normal, Davis continued. To us, it is a nightmare. Your ability to survive such conditions led to your classification as Deathworlders, being so hardy and adaptable that they are both amazing and frightening. Admiral Wilson's expression didn't change. And now our frightening abilities are useful to you. Yes, Davis admitted honestly. The Scourge has never encountered resistance like what humans can offer. Your ships are built for war. Your people can survive conditions that would kill most galactic species. You have a history of tactical innovation in battle. The room fell, silent again. Commander Reed spoke up. What does Earth get in return? Before Davis could answer, Admiral Wilson stood up. This isn't a negotiation, Commander. If these Scourge creatures are moving through the galaxy destroying worlds, they'll eventually reach Earth. Better to fight them far from our home. She turned to Davis. How many ships do you need? Davis tried to hide his surprise. He had expected more resistance, more questions. A battle group of your most advanced vessels. Perhaps 20 ships? Wilson shook her head. Not enough. If these Scourge destroyed an entire colony, we need to show overwhelming force. She turned to an officer, on her right. General Pike, prepare the First Fleet, 40 battlecruisers, support vessels, and the carrier groups. The general nodded and left the room quickly. Wilson looked back at Davis. We'll need all the intelligence you have on these Scourge, their weapons, tactics, weaknesses. Of course, Davis said, still stunned by how quickly humans moved from discussion to action. I'll transfer everything we know to your systems. How soon can we depart? Wilson asked. The ships can be ready in 12 hours, Admiral, another officer replied. Make it 10, Wilson ordered. Ambassador Davis will accompany us to provide guidance. Davis felt a chill run down his spine. He hadn't expected to join the human fleet. As the meeting ended, Commander Reed approached Davis. You're worried, Reed said. It wasn't a question. Your people move very quickly, Davis replied carefully. Reed smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That's what Deathworlders do, Ambassador. We react, we adapt, we survive. He looked at the hologram of the burning planet. And we protect those who can't protect themselves. Davis watched as the humans left the room, already giving orders through their communication devices. He wondered if the Council had made the right decision. The humans were indeed coming to help, but what would happen after? Would they return quietly to their isolated corner of the galaxy? As he followed them through the corridors of the Earth Defense Headquarters, Davis saw maps of the galaxy on large screens. On those maps, Earth was marked with a red circle and warning symbols. Dangerous, restricted, death world. Soon, the Scourge would learn why. Captain Jack Thomas stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderchild, watching his crew prepare for departure. The massive battlecruiser hummed with activity as systems came online and final checks were completed. Through the large view screen, he could see dozens of other warships floating in Earth's orbit, the pride of humanity's fleet. All systems green, Captain. First Officer Lisa Diaz reported from her station. We're ready to move out on Admiral Wilson's command. Thomas nodded. At 55, he was older than most active captains. Gray streaked his short brown hair, and lines marked his face from years of service. The Thunderchild was his third command and possibly his last before retirement. Status of the crew? He asked. All aboard and at battle stations, Diaz replied, though many of them are nervous. This is the first time most have gone beyond our solar system on a combat mission. Thomas understood their nervousness. Despite building a powerful space fleet, humans had been restricted to their own system and a few nearby stars. The Galactic Council had made it clear that Deathworlders weren't welcome to wander freely through the galaxy. Now suddenly, they were being asked to save it. Captain, incoming transmission from the flagship, the communications officer announced. Admiral Wilson's face appeared on the screen. All vessels, this is Admiral Wilson. The defense of Colony World 735 is now our primary mission. We launch in 10 minutes. Captains attend the final briefing in 5. Thomas tapped his wrist device and the holographic meeting room appeared around him. The other 39 ship captains were already gathering, their forms slightly transparent. Admiral Wilson stood at the center with Ambassador Davis. Ladies and gentlemen, Wilson began, we're about to make history. This is humanity's first major military operation beyond our borders. The galaxy will be watching. She gestured to Davis, who stepped forward nervously. I have transferred all available information about the Scourge to your ship's computers, the four-armed alien said. Unfortunately, it isn't much. We know they attack without warning or demands. They destroy everything and everyone. They do not respond to communication attempts. What about their technology? A captain asked. How do they compare to our ships? Their weapons appear to be energy-based, similar to your plasma cannons but potentially more powerful, Davis answered. Their ships are biological in nature, partly grown rather than fully built. Thomas felt uneasy. Biological ships? Like living creatures? In a sense, Davis confirmed. They seem to heal damage over time, which makes them difficult to destroy completely. The captains exchanged concerned looks. That's why we're bringing overwhelming force, Admiral Wilson said firmly. Our strategy is straightforward. We arrive at Colony World 735, evacuate as many settlers as possible, and prepare a defensive position. When the Scourge arrives, we hit them with everything we have. She looked at each captain. Make no mistake, this is not a peacekeeping mission. This is war. If the Scourge is as dangerous as the reports suggest, we show no mercy. The briefing continued for a few more minutes with technical details and formation assignments. As it ended, Thomas noticed Davis watching the humans with a strange expression. "Something wrong, Ambassador?" Thomas asked, staying behind as the other captains disappeared from the holographic room. Davis seemed startled. "No, Captain. I just find it remarkable how eager your people seem for battle." Thomas smiled grimly. "Not eager, Ambassador. Determined. There's a difference." Back on the bridge of the Thunderchild, Thomas took his command chair. The ship's AI displayed the fleet formation on his personal screen. "All hands, secure for faster-than-light travel," he ordered. As the crew made final preparations, Thomas looked at the data about the Scourge. Something didn't feel right. A species appears from nowhere and starts destroying colonies without communication or apparent reason. "Captain, Admiral, Wilson signals the fleet is ready," Diaz reported. Thomas pushed his doubts aside. Questions would have to wait. "Engage FTL drive on the flagship's mark," he ordered. The stars outside the view screen stretched into lines as the massive human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. The journey to Colony World 735 would take just under 3 days. During those 3 days, the ships of Earth's fleet prepared for battle. In the Thunderchild's engineering section, Chief Engineer Patel modified the ship's weapons. If they're biological ships, they might be vulnerable to radiation in ways mechanical. "Ships aren't," Patel explained to Thomas during an inspection. "I've adjusted our nuclear missiles to maximize the radiation burst on detonation." In the medical bay, Dr. Reyes prepared for possible casualties. "We've never treated aliens before," she told Thomas. "But I've studied the colony's main species. We can help them if needed." Throughout the ship, Thomas saw the same focus and determination. His crew was young. Many had never seen actual combat, but they were well-trained and innovative. On the final day before arrival, Thomas invited Ambassador Davis to the ship's mess hall to eat with the officers. "Your people continue to surprise me," Davis admitted as they ate. "You're treating this mission as routine, yet it's unprecedented." "Humans adapt quickly," Thomas replied. "It's how we survived Earth." "The Council fears that adaptability," Davis said quietly. "They worry what will happen when humans spread throughout the galaxy." Before Thomas could respond, an alarm sounded. "Captain, to the bridge," came Diaz's voice over the intercom. Thomas and Davis rushed to the bridge. On the main screen was an image of Colony World 735, now just 2 hours away. "We're picking up emergency transmissions," the communications officer reported. "The Scourge arrived early. They're already attacking the colony." Thomas felt his heart sink. "How bad?" "The colony's defenses are failing. They report heavy casualties," the officer replied. Thomas turned to Davis. "I thought we had more time." "The Scourge must have increased their speed," Davis said, his 4 hands trembling. "This changes everything." Admiral Wilson's face appeared on the screen. "All ships, battle stations. We're dropping out of FTL in attack formation. Prepare all weapons." Thomas looked at his crew, seeing the fear in their young faces. This would be their baptism by fire. "You heard the Admiral," he said calmly. "Battle stations. We came here to save lives, and that's what we're going to do." As the Thunderchild and the rest of Earth's fleet prepared for battle, Thomas had one certainty. After today, the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. The Deathworlders were going to war. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of light. Captain Thomas gripped the arms of his command chair as the view screen showed Colony World 735. Parts of the green planet were already blackened with fire. "Status. Report," Thomas ordered. 15 Scourge vessels detected in orbit around the planet, the sensor officer reported. "They're attacking the main settlement. Colony shields are failing." "Any response to our communications?" Thomas asked. "Negative, sir. The Scourge aren't answering our hails." Thomas looked at Ambassador Davis, who stood pale and shocked at the sight of another world burning. Admiral Wilson is ordering the fleet to engage, First Officer Diaz announced. We're assigned to protect the main settlement and evacuate survivors. Thomas nodded. Weapons hot. Bring us into position. The Thunderchild's engines roared as the massive warship moved toward the planet. Through the view screen, Thomas could see the Scourge ships, strange, organic-looking vessels with curved hulls that resembled enormous shells or bones. They're detecting us, the sensor officer warned. 3 Scourge ships are breaking off from the colony to intercept. On screen, Thomas ordered. The view screen zoomed in on the approaching Scourge vessels. They moved with surprising speed and grace for their size. All hands brace for combat, Thomas announced over the ship-wide channel. Fire control. Target the lead vessel. Fire when ready. The Thunderchild shuddered as its main cannons fired, sending streaks of energy toward the lead Scourge ship. The shots hit, burning into the strange hull. Direct hit, the weapons officer reported. But it's still coming. Thomas watched as the damage on the Scourge ship seemed to close up, like a wound healing. Chief Patel's radiation missiles, Thomas ordered. Fire 2 at each target. The missiles launched, streaking toward the Scourge ships. When they detonated, there was little visible explosion, but the radiation sensor spiked. This time, the effect was dramatic. The Scourge ships shuddered and twisted as if in pain. Their movements became erratic. It's working, Diaz exclaimed. The radiation is affecting their biological systems. All ships, this is Thunderchild, Thomas transmitted to the fleet. Target Scourge vessels with radiation-enhanced weapons. They're vulnerable to radiation damage. The space around the planet lit up as the human fleet engaged the Scourge. The battle was fierce, but the humans' tactics were working. The Scourge, seemingly unprepared for radiation weapons, began to fall back. Captain, we're receiving distress. Calls from the surface, the communications officer reported. There are survivors in the main settlement's underground bunkers. Prepare landing shuttles, Thomas ordered. Security teams with heavy weapons. Medical personnel. I want those people evacuated now. As the battle continued in orbit, Thomas led a team to the planet's surface. The landing shuttles touched down near the colony's main building, which was partly destroyed. The air smelled of smoke and something strange, like rotting plants. Life signs detected beneath that structure, a security officer reported, pointing to a large building that was still mostly intact. Thomas led his team inside, weapons ready. They found the entrance to the bunkers and called out to the survivors. This is Captain Thomas of the Earth Defense Force. We're here to evacuate you. Slowly, the bunker door opened. Thin, frightened aliens emerged, the colonists. They had blue skin and large eyes. Many were injured. You came, one of them said in the common galactic language. We thought no one would come. We received your distress call, Thomas replied. We're taking you to safety. As the humans helped the survivors to the shuttles, Thomas noticed something strange in a damaged laboratory. A container held what looked like a small Scourge ship, perhaps a drone or scout. Dr. Reyes, he called to the medical officer. What do you make of this? Dr. Reyes scanned the object with her devices. It's definitely biological. Similar structure to the Scourge ships, but smaller. And it's still alive, in a dormant state. Thomas made a quick decision. Take it with us. Our scientists need to study it. Back in orbit, the battle was turning in humanity's favor. The Scourge ships were retreating, unable to counter the radiation weapons. Admiral Wilson is ordering pursuit of the retreating Scourge vessels, Diaz reported when Thomas returned to the bridge. We're to continue evacuation operations. By the time all survivors were safely aboard the human ships, only 7 of the 15 Scourge vessels had escaped. The humans had lost 3 ships, and several were damaged, but it was clearly a victory. In the Thunderchild Science Lab, Dr. Reyes and her team studied the captured Scourge specimen. Thomas and Ambassador Davis joined them to hear their findings. It's remarkable, Dr. Reyes said, pointing to screens showing scans of the specimen. The Scourge ships are completely biological. They're living creatures, engineered for space travel and combat. Engineered? Davis asked. You mean they were created, not evolved naturally? Exactly, Reyes confirmed. The genetic structure shows signs of extensive manipulation. And there's something else. She pointed to a strange pattern in the creature's brain. This isn't normal for any evolved species. It looks like programming. Biological programming. Thomas frowned. You're saying the Scourge are, what? Biological weapons? That's my theory, Reyes nodded. They were created by someone else, designed to attack and destroy, then move on to the next target. Davis looked shocked. Who would create such things and why? The genetic markers are ancient, Reyes explained. Based on the decay rate, these designs could be millions of years old. Whoever created the Scourge might not even exist anymore. Thomas stared at the specimen. But something activated them recently. Something sent them on this path of destruction. The ship's intercom interrupted them. Captain to the bridge, Admiral. Wilson is calling an emergency meeting. On the bridge, Wilson's face filled the main screen. She looked grim. We've tracked the retreating Scourge ships, she announced to all the fleet captains. They're regrouping with a much larger force. At least 100 ships just 2 systems away. A chill ran through the room. Based on their trajectory, Wilson continued, they'll be ready to attack again in 3 days. And this time they'll know what they're facing. Thomas looked at Davis, who seemed to have aged years in just hours. We need reinforcements, Thomas said. Can the Council send ships now? Davis shook his head. Not in 3 days, we're on our own. Wilson's expression hardened. Then we need a new strategy. The radiation weapons worked, but they'll adapt. We need to understand what we're fighting. Thomas thought of the specimen in the lab. Admiral, we captured a small Scourge craft. Our scientists believe the Scourge are engineered biological weapons, possibly millions of years old. Wilson was silent for a moment. That changes things, she finally said. If they're weapons, they might have weaknesses built into their design. Find them. As the meeting ended, Thomas knew they were facing an even greater challenge than before. The first battle had been won, but the real test was coming. Humanity had shown the galaxy what Deathworlders could do. Now they had to prove they deserved their reputation. For 2 days, the science team on the Thunderchild worked without rest. Captain Thomas checked on their progress frequently, watching as Dr. Reyes and her team studied the captured Scourge specimen. We're making progress, Dr. Reyes told him, during one visit. The Scourge have an interesting weakness. They communicate with each other through biological signals, like a hive mind. Can we disrupt that communication? Thomas asked. Reyes nodded. Possibly. We're developing a virus that could interfere with their signals. But we need to get it into their system. Thomas frowned. That would mean getting very close to their ships. Exactly, Reyes said. Someone would need to deliver it directly. Back on the bridge, Thomas shared the findings with Admiral Wilson and the other ship captains in a holographic meeting. A suicide mission, one captain said bluntly. Wilson shook her head. Not necessarily. We could use automated drones. They would be detected and destroyed before getting close enough, Thomas pointed out. But I have another idea. He explained his plan. It was risky, but it might work. Wilson listened carefully, then nodded. It's our best option, she decided. Captain Thomas, since it's your plan, you'll lead the operation. Choose your team carefully. Thomas selected his best pilots and engineers. The plan required precision flying and quick thinking, things humans excelled at. This is what makes humans different, Ambassador Davis commented as he watched the preparations. Other species would calculate the odds and decide this plan is too dangerous. But you contacted us precisely because we think differently, Thomas replied. Davis nodded. The Council will be watching. This battle may change how the galaxy sees humans forever. The moment of truth came faster than anyone expected. The Thunderchild sensors detected the Scourge fleet moving toward them, over 100 ships in tight formation. They're coming in faster than predicted, Diaz reported. Time to contact, 30 minutes. All ships, battle positions, Admiral. Wilson ordered over the fleet channel. Operation Trojan begins now. Thomas and his selected team boarded 3 specially modified shuttles. Each carried containers of the virus Dr. Reyes had developed. The modified shuttles had been disguised, to appear damaged, with their power systems dampened to make them look like debris. Remember, once we're in position, maintain radio silence, Thomas reminded his team. We'll only have one chance at this. The shuttles launched, appearing to drift away from the human fleet as if they were damaged vessels being abandoned. The main fleet arranged itself in a defensive position around the colony. As the Scourge fleet approached, the human ships opened fire. The space between the fleets lit up with energy weapons and explosions. But this time the Scourge seemed more resistant to the radiation weapons. They've adapted, Diaz observed from the Thunderchild's bridge. Just as we feared. The battle raged as Thomas and his team drifted closer to the Scourge fleet. Their shuttles moved slowly among actual debris from earlier fighting, appearing to be nothing more than broken ship parts. Inside his shuttle, Thomas watched as they passed between massive Scourge vessels. Up close, the biological nature of the ships was even more obvious. They looked like giant space-dwelling creatures with surfaces that pulsed and moved like skin. Approaching the lead vessel, Thomas whispered into his communicator. Team 2 and 3, move to your targets. The 3 shuttles separated, each drifting toward different Scourge command ships. Thomas guided his shuttle to a spot near what appeared to be a thin membrane on the lead ship's hull. Perfect, he murmured. Dr. Reyes was right. They have external respiratory systems. Thomas activated the virus containers. They would release their contents precisely when the shuttle made contact with the membrane. On my mark, he told his team. 3, 2, 1, mark. All 3 shuttles fired their hidden thrusters, pushing them directly into the chosen spots on the Scourge ships. Thomas's shuttle smashed against the membrane, breaking both the shuttle's hull and the alien tissue. The virus containers released, their contents directly into the Scourge ship systems. Thomas and his team quickly donned spacesuits as their shuttle lost pressure. They had to evacuate immediately. Impact successful, Thomas reported as they pushed away from the broken shuttle. Emergency extraction needed. The effect of the virus was almost immediate. The great Scourge ship began to shudder and twist. Its movements became erratic. Then, most importantly, it began sending distress signals to the other ships. But the signals it sent weren't just distress calls. They carried the virus to the other ships. From the Thunderchild, Diaz watched in amazement as the confusion spread. Through the Scourge fleet, ship after ship began to move erratically, some crashing into each other. It's working, she exclaimed. The virus is spreading through their communication network. Admiral Wilson's voice came over the fleet channel. All ships, push the attack now. Target any vessels still moving in formation. The human fleet surged forward, firing at the disorganized Scourge ships. Without their coordinated movements, the Scourge were vulnerable. Meanwhile, 3 small human fighters raced to extract Thomas and his teams from space. Dodging debris and energy blasts, they managed to retrieve all 3 teams and race back to safety. When Thomas returned to the Thunderchild, the battle was nearly over. The few remaining Scourge ships were fleeing, their movement still disorganized. 37 Scourge ships destroyed, Diaz reported. 42 disabled and drifting. The rest are retreating. Human casualties? Thomas asked. 8 ships damaged, 2 destroyed, Diaz said solemnly. But considering what we faced, it's a miracle. 3 days later, ships from the Galactic Council finally arrived. The human fleet had remained to guard the system, but the Scourge hadn't returned. On the flagship, Admiral Wilson met with the Council representatives. Captain Thomas and Ambassador Davis attended as well. The Council extends its deepest gratitude, the lead representative said. Without Earth's intervention, many more worlds would have been lost. The Scourge threat isn't over, Wilson pointed out. The virus was a temporary solution. They'll adapt eventually. Which is why the Council has reconsidered humanity's position in the galactic community, the representative replied. We propose a new security alliance, with humans taking a leading role. Thomas glanced at Davis, who couldn't hide his surprise. Hurry. Too long. We saw your Deathworld traits as frightening, the representative continued. Now we understand they make you uniquely qualified to help protect the galaxy. Admiral Wilson's expression remained neutral. And the restrictions on human movement and settlement? Lifted, the representative said simply. The galaxy needs the Deathworlders. Later, as the Thunderchild prepared to return to Earth, Thomas found Davis on the observation deck watching the stars. How does it feel? Thomas asked. Knowing everything has changed? Davis smiled slightly. Frightening. Exciting. The Council feared humans for so long. Now they need you. Not just us, Thomas said. We all need each other. That's what makes a community. As the human fleet jumped back to faster-than-light travel, heading home as heroes, Thomas thought about what lay ahead. The galaxy was opening to humanity at last. There would be challenges, but also opportunities. The Deathworlders had proven their worth, and the galaxy would never be the same.